Bismillah walhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. From the usul of Iman, from those most essential elements of Iman, is the belief in Qadr. And we have different ways that Qadr is interpreted. And I noted the bitter of it and the sweet of it. But we have in the Arabic language and in the textual evidences, Qadr is described as khayrihi wa sharrihi. That there's the Qadr that we are commanded to believe in and to work with, which is good, is determined or described as good. And then the Qadr that we are commanded to believe in, to work with, to be patient with, which is evil. And that doesn't mean be patient from the angle of submitting to it, because we in Islam have the issue of enjoining the good, forbidding the evil, right? And we have the issue of justice. So it's not just the issue of submitting to the evil of affairs and letting ourselves go. In today's psychology that's used in the corporate world, there's this tendency to focus on the whole idea, and it's been there for a while, and actually it came out of various movements. It's called the positive psychology movement. It's a school of thought. It's a madhab. It's even at times associated with Satanism. If you go back and you look at the history of the positive psychology movement, you'll begin to see, what are the origins. In any event, the whole issue of perception, we have to understand what truth is in Islam and what truth is overall. Perception is not truth. Perception is a way of seeing things, and there may be some benefit in it. But sometimes we have to come to terms with things as they are. Musa, alayhi salatu wasalam, in his sojourn with Qadr, in his journey with Qadr, he encountered some very disturbing realities. Qadr didn't tell him, Musa, be positive. Musa, be positive. He didn't tell him, Musa, be positive. He informed Qadr that there were certain realities that you won't be able to hang with if you want to come on this journey of understanding life. That type of idea. And he told them you won't be patient with this reality. And so Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, he had to experience some very disturbing realities in life that led it to come to understand that the work of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala at times is not understood. See, the reality is that there's evil in the world. The reality is that shaitan is a creation. The reality is that there's a satanic force in the universe. There's a force that operates against human beings. And that's very real. You cannot eliminate that reality from our aqidah. You cannot eliminate that reality from human interactions. There's things that take place. It's very difficult in times of suffering to have people take on a positive psychology like things are okay. No, people go through pain. They go through suffering. That's very real, right? The Qadr of Allah, khayrihi wa sharrihi, goodness of it, right? And that which is evil or that which is bad, we are enjoined to believe in. Now, aside from the issue of perception, there's the reality of hope, which is from the amal of the qulub. is from the actions of the heart, which is intimately connected to Iman. And so sometimes affairs come which bring about desperation. And then we begin to have hope in our hearts, right? It may not go the way that we want it. We may want to paint it as positive as we want, but then we find out that the conditions of the reality turned it into a situation that is not the positive direction that we wanted, right? That's why we have to be careful with perception, right? We can't just act like there are certain realities in the world that can just be wiped out. There are realities which are dire, right? But when you add on the issue of hope, it's more powerful than positivity from the angle of psychology. When you add on the issue of hope, you're tying your heart to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. You're understanding that the conditions and the odds are against you. You're looking at the reality as it is. You know that Allah can transform the situation, but then you realize it may be the case that the situation, if you described it in positivity, you wanted it to go into another and one particular direction, and Allah took it in another direction. What are you left with after that? Are you left with questioning? Your family member has cancer, on the verge of dying. And does positive perception only allow you to deal with that situation? Or is it hope and trust in Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala that allows you to deal with that situation? Hope and confidence that Allah has a wisdom in working through that. Love manifesting that makes the reality better. When you have those things, then your positive mindset is able to describe the ni'mah of Allah, and you start to count. And for whatever is negative in the situation, you make istighfar. Astaghfirullah wa atubu ilayh. You realize calamity has come. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. We have to be careful with certain attitudes and certain mindsets that we take, not from the Quran and the Sunnah, but we take from pop psychology. We take from certain movements. It's like certain people, they use these concepts of whatever's there in the universe, what the universe will give me. There's all kinds of Aqidah schools out there. We have to learn our Aqidah well, right? And we have to know that everything that we study in developmental leadership literature, the Fortune 500 company literature, all of that stuff is not in alignment with Islam. It may seem to work. There may seem to be some evidences in studies to be behind it, but it's not operational in our Aqidah. There's a reason why there's negativity and positivity in the world. There's a reason why there's evil and there's good. You can't write off evil. You can't pretend that evil does not exist under the name of being positive. There's evil that exists in the world. And when your positive psychology is challenged, the only thing that will get you through is hope. Viktor Frankl, in Logotherapy, in The Man's Search for Meaning, he talked about scenarios in which people were put to the test. Put to the test. In Nazi concentration camps, in that type of scenario, they were put to the test in every aspect. And what kept them going was a sense of meaning. Was a sense of meaning. Was a sense of hope in the situation. Not in the situation of just counting, your blessings without anything else. Because when those blessings disappear and all of the asbab are cut off, what do you have left? When you're at the point where your positive mindset is tested by despair, if you have no hope, what do you have left? Positivity and hope are not the same thing. Positivity and hope are not the same thing. Hope is tied into Iman, it's tied into Aqidah, it's tied into the heart. A positive mindset is tied into your perception only. And your perception can be flipped at the moment. And so then your Iman is dashed. Right? If your Iman is based on the psychology of positivity solely, your Iman is dashed. Because I guarantee you that life situations will come and will rip you apart. And then we will see the same people that talked about the positive mindset down and out for a minute, and we're looking and we're seeing, like, weren't you the person that was talking about being positive? Versus, you should have told me how to be hopeful. You should have told me that we have a belief in Islam, in Qadr. You should have told me that Qadr consists of sharrihi wa khayrihi, believing in the goodness of Qadr and the evil of Qadr, or the bitterness of Qadr, right, and the sweetness of Qadr, and that there's a reality that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala is Al-Hakim. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala is the one that transforms hearts. The hearts move through the fingers of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala and can go from one state to another. It's Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala that takes us out of situations of despair, right? It's Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala that has the power of transformation. But even with all of that, we're still enjoined to have faith and to have an understanding that the dunya also has an operational factor. Qadr, khayrihi wa sharrihi. And then the human being is enjoined to act. We don't understand the secret of Qadr because it seems to oppose free will. Qadr seems to give the indication that human beings have no ability to act, but that's not the belief of the people of the Sunnah. Right? Qadr is the secret of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala in the universe. How it plays itself out when it comes to the issue of Qadr is not totally understood. But what we do understand is that the human being is unique in the world. But we should never downplay the reality of evil and try to cover that joint up with just a positive mindset. Evil exists. Evil exists in the world. You can't sit there and write off the situation of a woman or a child being molested or raped with a positive mindset. You can't do it. You cannot do it. You cannot sit there and console a mother who lost her child to suicide with a positive mindset. In that moment, you won't be able to reach. You won't be able to do it. When you're hit with calamity and trial and tribulation in your life, that positive mindset will go. You will cry. You will feel lost. You will feel confusion, disorientation. You'll feel darkness. You won't be able to handle it. The only thing that can carry you in those moments is your heart navigating with hope. Your heart navigating with hope. Your heart turning to shukr, to giving thanks to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala for whatever goodness is in the life. And you may say that, oh, that's kind of your that's being positive. No. That's being real. That's knowing how to determine what are the real situations in life. But a lot of times we negate these experiences that we have in life. It's like the situation that we find with people that have been oppressed in the dunya. Are you just going to tell them that it's hopeful? Right? Yes, you would tell them that it's hopeful. You would tell them, though, there's real trauma in the world. Are you going to tell them just be positive? No, you can't just tell them be positive. You can't tell them to be positive. You have to tell them to be real in the situation. You have to tell them to be hopeful in the situation. You have to tell them to have belief in the situation. But if you tell them just be positive, How the hell are you going to counsel someone in a domestic violence relationship and you tell them to be positive? This is the psychology at times that we have that we don't realize when we put it to the test, it doesn't match up with life. It does not match up with life. You tell them, get out. The situation that you're in realistically is evil, it's wrong, it's not right for you. That's you're going to tell someone that is addicted to heroin and is on the brink of death, be positive? Tell them, your situation is messed up. If you don't take the right choices in your life to transform yourself, we may not see you around, brother, sister. There's some things that we have to be real with. I understand what people are trying to achieve. I understand that people are tired of hearing the negatives. But if we're tired of hearing the negatives, then why don't we join hands together to bring about positives? But don't tell me to have a positive mindset psychology and you don't want to join your hands with me in transforming this world to make it a better place. That's not going to help the situation. Part of the reason why some of us have a negative mindset from the beginning is because we're looking at how to transform the world. We're looking at the evil in the world and we admit that it's there, right? That doesn't mean that we're not people of hope. We're people of hope. That doesn't mean that we can't carry a smile. That doesn't mean that we don't experience joy. It means that we suffer at times pain. And your positive mindset attitude can't negate the validity of my pain in life. And when you try to come into my circle and negate the validity of my pain, it shows me that you're not empathetic. It shows me that you didn't connect with me at the level of heart and being a human being. It showed me that you didn't take the time out to understand that we suffer as human beings in the world. You belittled my suffering and you wrote it off under have a positive mindset when you didn't want to take the time to be with me. Whether it took me 23 days or 3 years to grieve, you couldn't be patient with me as your brother to be able to deal with that life situation, that type of scenario. And that's very real. And that's why a lot of us feel alone in the world, because we become issues of collateral damage. That person, in this situation, if I handle that situation, I got to deal with that person. That's not going to benefit me at the moment. So the relationship is not authentic. It's not an authentic relationship in that regard. Yes, be positive. But be positive when? After you took into account the reality as it is. You took into account the negatives. After you exercise hope, then your positive attitude mentality is complete. But if you think that you're going to overcome just with a positive attitude mentality, that's just not the reality of how life works. That's some pop psychology. That works for rich white people with $1 billion, $1 million in the bank, and they're feeling on top of the world. That's not how our people survived and have overcome 500 years of oppression on the earth, by sitting and just being positive. We had to learn to find meaning in situations and transform them and overcome while accepting the reality. And that's why that same person that tells you follow these pop psychology books of being positive, when they lose their $1 million, they're the first ones to go commit suicide. And that's why we, in our suffering, in our situations, we have overcome and we still overcome, and we have resilience because we understand Qadr, khayrihi wa sharrihi. We understand what it means to believe in God. We understand what miracles mean. That's not going to come by a positive mentality. That comes because we're deep people of faith. People that understand that yes, there's evil in the world, but in the end game, we understand the power of Allah. We may not understand the situations that hit us and destroy us, but we believe in the power of Allah to transform situations. That's hope. That's hope. That's part of Aqidah. That's part of the heart. And be careful when you tell people be positive in situations. Their situations may be really mucked up. So you're telling people to be positive in situations which they really need to get out of. Situations which are really bad. Be careful when you tell people to be positive. Be careful when you try to tell people to smile. They may need to cry. They may need to get out the pain. They may need to grieve. Don't try to write people's suffering and pains off. That's problematic. And with that, we end this. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.